So as Thea mentioned at the Poverty Initiative, we do a kind of different kind of reading of the Bible, and a lot of the stories and narratives and passages that we read, most of us are familiar with. I grew up, so I'll just out myself. I'm a Baptist. I know. And so in my tradition, it's a tradition of like just memorizing everyone that I grew up with. We know story, we know characters, we know it all by heart. And then when I came to Union and started working with the Poverty Initiative, I was immersed in this deconstruction of everything I'd ever been taught. So what I have right now is a combination of what my mother taught me, what my Sunday school teachers taught me, what my professors ripped apart, and then what I had to put back together again. So my objective is always to kind of trouble the waters a little bit, just to get us to think a little bit about some of the stories that we know and love so well. And I hope that by the time I'm finished, you won't be, trying to throw me off a cliff somewhere, but that you'll really be able to embrace something that I share with you today. So just come along with me on the journey. Let's continue to be curious. Okay, so we're going to start with just a reading of the Word. Now I think the version that we have in front of you is the NRSV.
So it's on the second page of the handout, if you have the handout. At the top, it's the Luke passage.
And I actually have a copy of the Amplified Bible, and that's going to help us amplify some of what I'm going to talk about today. So we'll read the NRSV, I'll look at the Amplified a little bit just to pull out some keywords, and then I'll talk a little bit about some of the key points that are really have cropped up for me in our study of this text. So the persistent widow. Then Jesus told them a parable about their need to pray always and not to lose heart. He said, in a certain city there was a judge who neither feared God nor had respect for people. In that city there was a widow who kept coming to him and saying, "Grant me justice against my opponent." For a while he refused, but later he said to himself, "Though I have no fear of God and no respect for anyone, yet because this widow keeps bothering me, I will grant her justice, so that she may not wear me out by continually coming." And the Lord said, "Listen to what the unjust judge says. And will not God grant justice to his chosen ones who cry to him day and night? Will he delay long in helping them? I tell you, he will quickly grant justice to them. And yet, when the Son of Man comes, will he find faith on earth?" So knowing this story, this is a narrative. Oh, I knew that was going to happen. Sorry. Hopefully I won't blow the place up. This is not something that I would have willingly tried to preach, because it doesn't make any sense. Who is the judge, and is God the judge? And if God is the judge, why do I have to nag God to hear my prayers? What's going on here with this widow, and who's the opponent, and what is this thing about faith at the very end? It just does not make any sense to me. So if this ever came up in the lectionary, I would probably choose an Old Testament passage or something else to preach, because this just is too difficult. But it actually, if we start to think about it and look a little closer at it, there's something going on here that I think that we can take away. So this keeps a little feedback. Can you all hear me? Yes. All right, good. So the first thing to think about, so we've got a couple of people here. We've got the widow, we've got the judge, and then we've got the opponent. And the scenario really makes sense, and especially as we look at how women are treated then and how women are treated now, it's not anything new for us to be facing an opponent who is unrelenting in their abuse or their disregard of what she's crying for, which is justice. So we kind of get that. So we get the widow. But the other thing we need to understand is that there were certain protocols and guidelines in place to protect and take care of the widow. So there's a setup here. So we've got in the Hebrew Bible all of these protocols for taking care of the widow. Take care of the widow and the orphan. Leave the corner of your field unturned. And over again we hear that we're supposed to take care of those who are the weakest, the most disregarded in society, the most unprotected. So take care of them. So here's the widow, and she's being battered and attacked by an opponent. We don't know who the opponent is. And it's really not important to know who the opponent is, because What's most important is to know that this woman is being deprived of justice. She's being treated unfairly. Now, when we think about opponents, we can think about people or we can think about systems. I tend to think of both. So as someone who works in, I'm a training coordinator for a domestic violence agency. So when I think of opponent, I have a clear picture in my eye. Neither male nor female, but just someone who is exerting power and control over another individual, an opponent. But then as a woman of color, I think of my opponent also as the systems that are set up against me. And against both of those, I am working to achieve some sense of justice. You don't have to be a widow. For me, I think the widow stands as woman. Okay, so we've got the widow. We know something about widows. We know something about women. We know something about what it's like to fight for justice. We have the adversary. And then we have the judge. Now, the thing about the judge should know better. The judge is a judge. And so when I think of a judge, I think of someone who knows the law, who knows how he, and in some cases she, is supposed to act in society. The judge knows what they're supposed to do, but here the judge is not willing to really give in to the widow right away. So let me just switch over to the Amplified for a minute. In verse 2 it says, the judge neither reverenced nor feared God. He didn't respect or consider man. All right, so we know a little something about the judge. But then in verse 5 he says, he kind of throws up his hands and says, okay, enough. This woman is wearing me down. Now, when you go to the Greek where he says, lest she give me intolerable annoyance, when you translate that, it's not just intolerable annoyance. It's also translated as to beat someone black and blue. So metaphorically, this judge, this person of power and control and supposedly wisdom, is going to give in to this woman because metaphorically he's going to get beaten black or blue. But I'll also tell you that there's a literal meaning in there also. So she is wearing him out physically and mentally, and that's what drives him to the point of giving in. So here's the thing about achieving justice. For many of us, and especially for the Poverty Initiative, with a lot of the groups that we work with, in order to achieve the justice that they're seeking, and I can use an example, the Domestic Workers United, a group here in New York who just had the Bill of Rights passed. I see heads nodding, so you know their story. They were that widow who continued to beat black and blue Sheldon Silver, sending letters, calling on churches, going up to Albany to advocate, right? So it's that constant battering. And I can't say whether or not he gave in because he was tired of the terrible annoyance or just because they were so effective. But I think there's something to be said here about that constant, unrelenting drive to achieve the justice that you've been deprived of. So for nothing else, we can see that this widow is really embodying a lot of the work that we do. And I'm saying we inclusively because I believe that the women in this room are also embodying that work. So, then is the judge God? I see a head shaking no. I see some quizzical looks. Right? And this is not something I expect anyone to just say, no, the judge is not God. But it's really interesting the way this is read because we've often read it as if God is the judge and then we have to really annoy God to achieve our goals. And is that the God that we serve, one who needs to be annoyed? Okay, so I'm glad you're uncomfortable. I'm very glad you're uncomfortable. Good, because it often feels like in the work that we do, we pray, God, how long? It's the psalmist, how long, how long, how long? How long is it going to be before I don't have to work for a domestic violence agency any longer? Right? I would love to wake up one day and say, oh, I'm out of a job. Woohoo! So how long do I have to keep doing this? Oh God, how long? Right? So maybe the judge isn't God. So we've got people in positions of power and privilege and control who are able to help us achieve justice. We've got adversaries, whether it's systemic or individual, who continually beat us down. And then we go to our Sheldon Silver, or our Kirsten Gillibrand, or our Schumer, or our Nan Hayworth. I'm from Bedford Hills, Westchester County. That's my congressperson. We go to that person and we say, this is what we need, this is what we need, this is what we need, until they say, okay, fine. This is how I'm reading it, and I'm hoping that in your groups when you're talking about it, and I still struggle with it. It doesn't always make sense to me. I come back and I think, but wait, is God? No, it's not God. Okay, it's the judge. The judge is the system. No, wait, is it the... It's very, very tricky. And I think that's the wonderful thing about the parables, because every time you read them, you come back and you find something new. And something new. And doing the work that I do, I keep coming back and finding something new and something else to fuel me, to help me move my movement, move my work, move the movement a little forward. Okay, so I just want to leave you with a couple of closing thoughts. We did this Bible study a couple of years ago, and I've got transcript here, and just some thoughts that I had when I first read this. I think someone said, and this is the group, so this is a transcript from our group Bible study. I think someone in the group said something about what motivates people to do something. So a lot of our work, a lot of the work of the Poverty Initiative, a lot of the work that we do at my agency, a lot of the work that you do, is about getting people to do the right thing. The unjust judge is withholding justice, not being overtly malicious, but he's withholding the right thing. So what we're seeing here is that it doesn't matter so much why you do the right thing, but that you do the right thing. So if you're doing the right thing because you just want the widow, you want us, you want the agency, you want wherever you are, the church, you want them to just leave you alone so you'll do the right thing, hey, that works for me. If he doesn't, it doesn't say that he sees the light, which is really important. So the judge isn't converted. The judge at the end doesn't say, now I have reverence for God, I respect other people. That doesn't happen. So he's not converted. And honestly, is that always what we want to do? Do we always want to bring people over to our side, or do we just want them to do the right thing? And that's a question that I think we have to struggle with. So he doesn't see the light at the end, but that's not the point. The point is that he has to do the right thing. The widow, the adversary, and the judge. So what are we going to do? What are we willing to do in our work to get the judge to do the right thing, as we understand how God wants that right thing to be accomplished? Thank you.